fabulous thunder of the classic Formula 5000's return to Ruapuna with a huge lineup of cars for the second round of the Tasman Revival Series. While some of these historic cars are almost priceless, you wouldn't think so watching the drivers hurl them around the race circuits around New Zealand. Names like Begg, McRae, Lola McLaren and March stir up the memories of a golden age of New Zealand motorsport. It's the MSC Tasman Revival Series for 07-08. He's the doyen of New Zealand motorsport, and what better way to celebrate 50 years of motor racing for New Zealand Grand Prix winner Kenny Smith than to reunite with his beloved Formula 5000s. Kenny Smith, you're in your 50th season of motor racing. You get back into these Formula 5000 cars and you've got a big smile on your face. What is it all about?
Oh, the magic. There's just, you can't explain until you've driven one just what they're like. They've got plenty of grunt and they move all over the road and they're a big beast, but I tell you what, they're drivable and controllable.
You enjoying your time back behind the wheel of these cars? I mean, you spent a lot of years in these cars over the years around the Pacific.
Yep, no, I am. This has been a thrill getting in that. I mean, the last meeting at Manfield was brilliant, having a good dice with Chris, and unfortunately we're a little bit outpaced here a little bit because we're carting like 100 kgs of weight more than most of these other cars, and that's killing it on this sort of circuit. Good
to see the young guys like Chris and that coming into the field and sort of keeping you guys honest.
Yeah, no, he's going good. With the little amount of experience he's got, he's driving brilliant. He's going very good. And good to drive with too, clean. But most of the guys, the front-running guys are. Roger, when he was up there having a go, I mean, you can rely that you're not going to get run over with him.
With these cars, you go back to the 70s when they were in their heyday, older tyre technology and things like that. What progressions have been made now with the cars running in the 2000s?
Well, I think they've got a little bit more horsepower, some of them. Not all of them. I mean, I think the one we drive is probably no better than what we had when we were running in the 70s. But some of them have got that horsepower up pretty high at the moment. And the tyre combination, I don't really know whether the tyre combination would be any better. It'd probably be about the same because it takes about the same time to burn a set of tyres out as it did in those days.
All right, and for the rest of the weekend, what are your goals, what are your aims, just to enjoy yourself?
Well, enjoy myself. I'll be buggered by the time I finish. We've got 5 races tomorrow, 3 in the Toyota and 2 in the 5000. So I just got to keep jumping from one to the other, but it's all right. We'll get there.
And with jumping from one to the other, what are the major differences between the two cars having to get out of one and there into the other?
Well, you've got to realise you can't storm into a corner as hard because these big things take a bit of stopping, and you've got no sequential gearbox. You're on a 5-speed. But after you've done a lap, you warm-up lap, you're right, no problem.
What's your favourite race car of all time?
Lola Formula 5000, the best.
Christchurch's Chris Hyde has been the pace-setter in the MSC Tasman Revival Series, driving the New Zealand-designed McRae GM1. Lighter than the Lolas, this 1973 car was recently imported into the country and is potentially one of the fastest historic Formula 5000s in the world. Chris, you had a fantastic weekend at Manfield, first time ever in these cars. What is it about these cars that makes them so special?
They're just brutal on throttle, and they've got so much horsepower and bags of everything, bags of tyres, bags of grunt and bags of fun. Just, as I say, brutal one to throttle, and it's just to be running against the likes of Kenny and some of these other beautiful race cars, it's just a privilege and an honour to be there for a start, let alone winning some races which we've achieved, which was something like a dream come true.
There's a bit of rivalry out there between the McRaes and the Lolas. What's a little bit of the history around your car?
Mine was is a McRae. It's a New Zealand built car, which is fantastic. I have a Kiwi car running, beautifully, lovely built car, very rigid, quite high in the chassis, light enough to be just on the limit, which is great. My car came from America. It was a Ted Wens engine in a car from the States that won a couple of old championships over there. And there's only about half a dozen of them left in the world. Most of them were destroyed, so we were quite lucky to have one in the camp, and it was the pick of all the cars that I wanted would have been this car, so I'm lucky enough to be driving it.
The major differences between, say, the McRae and maybe some of the later model Lolas?
The major differences is obviously with the style of the car, the design of them and bits and pieces. We were quite lucky because the early Formula 5000s were quite different. They didn't have so much wing. We moved up to the reasonably good wings and slicks car. They moved up to the Lola 332s, which were quite a more aerodynamic car, reasonably good under brakes. As we can see, Kenny's reasonably good under brakes, but we work on the theory of slow and fast out, and Kenny works in a bit fast in. Sometimes he comes fast out too, but not as quick as us sometimes. So Kenny's just been unreal to race with, and Roger Williams, as you can see, he's going real quick as well. So got to keep my wits about me and have an early night tonight, and hopefully tomorrow will be great.
And it is Chris Hyde that starts out of grid position 1 with a stunning time of 1 minute 19.237. Roger Williams from grid 2, Kenny Smith from 3, Stuart Lush out of position 4. This big field of cars, up over 20 entries for the weekend, absolutely wowing the fans assembled in at the Powerboat Tools Raceway at Ruapuna. The field assembling behind the safety car, rolling start. Through the side of the ex-Denny Hull McLaren Formula One car, the famous Yardley McLaren. An amazing collection. Some of the finest examples of Formula 5000s on the planet. So Chris Hyde starting out of position 1 alongside Roger Williams and his newly imported Lola T332, and that car is very, very quick in a straight line. Cars lining up down to the start. Listen to them as the green flag flies. Roger Williams got the initial jump, but Chris Hyde goes through to the lead. Kenny Smith follows him through. The ex-Teddy Paulette number 4 Lola T430. Williams just runs wide a little bit off the exit. One problem's there, car 21. That's Christchurch's Lindsay O'Donnell in the big FM5. He started out at grid position 12. As Chris Hyde already has a couple of car lengths up on Kenny Smith. He's trying hard to stay with him. Kenny said before this race he thought his advantage was starting on cold tyres. As O'Donnell gets back up and running in the number 21, the fabulous big FM5, built in 1973. And that was the second to last big ever built. Working their way off the infield. Stan Redman there. Another beautiful Lola T332 car with a very distinctive exhaust note. 8-into-1 exhaust system tucked up underneath the rear wing. But it's Chris Hyde continuing on his winning ways at the moment. He's certainly leading race 2. He won the first race of the weekend as Redman runs wide. And the ex-Johnny Walker, number 25, Lola T332. Car also driven by Australian Formula 5000 legend Kevin Bartlett. And you can hear that car on overrun down into turn 1. Fabulous sound. Stuart Lush applying the pressure in the number 22. Another one of the McRae GM1s, car manufactured in 1973. That car with some European background in its racing history. Stuart Lush, one of the quickest drivers on the Formula 5000 circuit. A familiar car. And Chris Hyde. This car has been tested around Ruapuna and has lapped down in the 18.4s, 1 minute 18.4, and that is blisteringly quick. As Kenny Smith runs through in second, Roger Williams, he's spun up. The number 63 Lola T332, very lucky not to get collected. One of the cars has gone off track to miss him. I think it was 23, Tony Richards, another one of the Lola T332s. Williams continues on. How lucky was he not to get collected there? Kenny Smith trying hard, drops the right rear wheel off the track, off the exit of the sweeper onto the main straight at Ruapuna. Kenny Smith second, Stan Redman here in third. Stuart Lush fourth. So Roger Williams having problems in the second race of the weekend for the MSC Tasman Revival Series. So far to date after Manfield in the first race of the weekend at Ruapuna, Chris Hyde with 4 wins out of 4. Car number 88, Sefton Gibb from Napier, another one of the Lola T332s. This particular car has been clocked at over 300 kilometres an hour. One of the historic meetings at Phillip Island in Australia. You can see some subtle differences between some of the cars, even the Lolas, the 332s, with some different nose profiles. A little bit less bodywork on this car as we go on board with Sefton Gibb. Listen to this. Amazing sound. 500 to 600 horsepower, a clash there between Stuart Lush and Stan Redmond at the sweeper. Lush pulls off to the edge of the circuit. His race may be over. He's damaged the right front rim. Pulls into the pit chute, and Stuart Lush, his race is over for race 2. Let's have a look at the replay. Goes down the inside of Redmond at the sweeper. Just a clash of wheels. Redmond continues. We go back on board with Sefton Gibb. Fantastic sound. Sefton Gibb running fourth on the racetrack. Head of 23 Tony Richards and David Abbott, one of the main men behind this MSC Tasman Revival Series. He owns this car, the number 3 Lola T430, and the number 4 car driven by Kenny Smith. Fantastic sights, fantastic sounds. Everyone standing, watching these cars, bringing back the memories of the heydays of New Zealand motor racing. David Abbott's car has some history. It's an ex-Alan Hamilton car. It was recently found in pieces and restored by Motorsport Services and only just hit the track. Beautiful car. Car number 8, Kerry Anderson, Lola T142 from Auckland as we move on to the last lap. Another fantastic car. One of the older cars. Certainly not a lot of bodywork around that car. It just shows you how brave those drivers were in the 60s and 70s in Formula 5000. Chris Hyde works his way through the hairpin, just starting to work through some of the lap traffic now. Just up ahead was Kerry McIntosh in the big FM2. Kenny Smith comes up to lap car number 8, Kerry Anderson from Auckland. A beautiful Lola T142. Slips down the inside. Stan Redmond follows him through, and he's definitely closed the gap to Kenny Smith. Stan Redmond on a bit of a flyer here. He's just done a 1:21.1, and he's a tenth of a second quicker than Kenny Smith's fastest lap. So Stan Redmond will be enjoying this. He's keeping Kenny Smith honest. You can hear that distinctive exhaust note of Stan Redmond's car. He's got a new engine getting built for this car as the checkered flag flies for Chris Hyde. Chris Hyde takes the win in race number 2 for the MSC Tasman Revival Series at Ruapuna. Get back to Kenny Smith just on 10 seconds. Kenny Smith across the line in second. Stan Redmond closely follows behind in third. Car 51 there on the warm down lap. That's Peter Burson from Auckland. Another one of the McRae GM1s. So Chris Hyde with the win in race number 2 for the weekend for the Tasman Revival Series. Kenny Smith second, Stan Redmond third ahead of Sefton Gibb, Tony Richards fifth, and Roger Williams sixth. 19.3, a little bit better pace than yesterday. You think you got a little bit more left in it for the finale this afternoon?
Yeah, I've done an 18.4 around here in testing, but that is testing, and race pace is always different. The track's a little bit slower, but we've broken the lap record today, so by half a second, so hopefully we'll be able to pip it by about a second, but who knows what will happen.
Roll on race number 3.
Rock and roll.
And you're obviously enjoying yourself running these cars. I mean, that was a great race, yourself and Kenny Smith. You know, he's a pretty good racer, and you're actually quicker than him in that one.
I think that was more good luck than good management. I think Kenny's just letting me keep behind him. It looks good for you guys on the TV.
They are fantastic cars, though, and the Revival it's really working well.
Yeah, it is. It's working actually fantastic at the moment. You know, it seems to be more cars coming out of the woodwork all the time. There's about, I think there's 20 odd here today, and see the next one at Pucky's about 26. So it just keeps increasing. But the only thing is, as it increases, I go farther back down the line. And I don't like that. See, I used to be up the front. Now I'm going down to about 4th, 5th. Today was a lucky one, I think, 3rd. So I'll leave it at that, I think. I won't push my luck.
These days, but there are a few starting to find their way back home to New Zealand. One of those lucky McLaren owners is Auckland's Tony Roberts, and he has a very, very rare McLaren M22. Tony, there's been a huge revival with this Formula 5000 class. How's that come about over the last few years?
It's really something that we've worked at since probably 1997. We had a Formula Libre race, and we had a Formula Libre class, and that started to bring the guys out, bring out a lot of cars that had been just stored away. And that probably we had 4 or 5 Formula 5000s come out, and they were running with Formula 3000s and every other sort of type of car. But from there, we just really worked on the 5000 register, and I took over from Ken White, and then the South Island really got into it as well. So we've got about 12 in the South Island, 12 or 13 in the North Island. So about 25 Formula 5000s.
Obviously, they're very, very strong in Europe, and obviously the US with, you know, a huge number of cars still over there. But down here per head, we've got a fair few ourselves.
Yeah, we're probably the strongest in the world, I think, and we're the most organised. Even though there's 28 to 30 in Australia, they seldom get more than 4 or 5 at a race meeting, and they just need some organisation. Same in the US, really. I think it's the size of the country where it's much harder to get the cars together because they're, 2,000 k's apart.
Your car, the McLaren M22's only recently arrived in the country. What's some of the background about this car? It's pretty rare.
Yeah, it is. They only built 3 of them. We know of probably only 2 that are left. We don't know where the other one is. It's been in Colorado. It was restored in 97. It was driven by Tom Jones back in 1973, 74. And not Tom Jones, the singer, obviously. But, yeah, pretty cool car. Fairly obsolete by the time it was built compared with the Lolas. So it was the last, and that car was the last actual McLaren Formula 5000 to be built.
With this amazing field assembling for the final race of the weekend for the MSC Tasman Revival Series. Again, we're on board with Sefton Gibb. Looking forward to some fantastic pictures. Chris Hyde, he's got a battle on his hands. Roger Williams, who had the spin in the last race, see if he can keep it on track for race number 3. Chris Hyde starts out of position 1 alongside Roger Williams. Ken Smith from 3, Stan Redmond from 4. Row 3 is Tony Richards alongside Sefton Gibb. Row 4, David Abbott alongside the Talon MR1A of Aaron Burson. Another car with a lot of history, a derivative of the McRae GM2 manufactured in Texas. Built in 1974. That's the car starting off the outside of the 4th row. Problems there for car 39, Kerry McIntosh. 1969 big FM2. So it doesn't look like Kerry will make the start for race number 3 as the field thunders down to the green. Roger Williams this time gets the jump on the McRae GM1 of Chris Hyde. Roger Williams ran a little bit wide. The McRae slips up the inside, and I think Hyde's going to lead to pothole. Back through the field, a couple of the McLarens back there. The Yardley McLaren, driven by Phil Major from Christchurch. There's Aaron Burson in the Talon MR1. Kenny Smith on the hunt. A massive airbox that dominates the Lola T430s. But it's Chris Hyde that leads on lap number 1 from Williams. Kenny Smith, Stan Redmond. On board with Sefton Gibb, chasing down car 23, Tony Richards. Sefton Gibb at speed. Oh, he misses a gear down the main straight. Risking a big over-rev there with the 5-litre Chevy. Most of these cars 302 cubic inches, between 5 and 600 horsepower. Yellow flags out at the hairpin for Chris Hyde. Then followed by Williams, Kenny Smith, Stan Redmond, Richards, Sefton Gibb, David Abbott, Aaron Burson in the Talon MR1, and probably one of the cars that define Formula 5000s in New Zealand. That's the big 018 driven by Noel Atley. Absolutely stunning example. George Begg, of course, one of the pioneers of open wheel racing in New Zealand. Sadly, George Begg passed away last year. Returned to New Zealand to build these cars after working with Bruce McLaren in Europe. Begg and Allen based in Drummond in Southland. A small town that certainly manufactured some of the most beautiful motor racing cars seen on the motor racing circuits around the country. Back on board with Sefton Gibb. He's applying the pressure there to the 23. He's just snaking his way under brakes down into one. Tony Richards in the Lola T332, car 21, Lindsay O'Donnell. Another one of those beautiful bigs, the FM5 this time. This particular car, the second to last big ever built. Had a spin in race number 2 for the weekend. Doing a good job here holding off Tony Roberts. The McLaren M22, built in 1972. It was an uprated version of the very successful M10B McLaren Formula 5000 car. As Tony said in his interview, this particular car is very, very rare. Of course, the familiar McLaren orange. There's a quick glimpse there of the ex-Graham Lawrence Lola T332, the familiar Singapore Airlines car. Car 21. Lindsay O'Donnell from Christchurch, the sister car to this one, the black car driven by David Oxton. Currently resides in the Southwood Car Museum in Paraparaumu. So that's the battle for the 9th and 10th positions. Meanwhile, up in front, Chris Hyde continues to lead, but Williams is keeping him honest. Not a big gap between first and second, and Kenny Smith is staying with Williams as well, cutting his fastest lap times of the weekend. Another one of the famous Formula 5000 cars, the ex-Teddy Paulette Lola T430. This particular car, chassis number HU number 1, built in 1976. Second place, Roger Williams, coming back from that spin in race number 2. Lola 332, this is chassis number HU42/2. It was re-tubbed. The original tub was repaired and turned into a Can-Am car in the US. Very, very quick in a straight line, and Roger's still getting to grips with this car. It has only just recently arrived in New Zealand. Roger previously raced the McRae GM1. Fabulous car represented in the old STP colours. This car, another car with a lot of history behind it. Kevin Bartlett was one of Australia's best open wheel racers. Certainly did a few laps in this car. And officially he's won the award for the weekend as the best sounding Formula 5000 out there. Roger Williams, probably within a second. He's not far away. He is really keeping Chris Hyde honest. Back on board with Sefton Gibb. That battle continues with Tony Richards. David Abbott, another one that's really cutting some impressive lap times as well. He's down in the 122s. Longer race distance for the final race of the weekend. 12 laps for the MSC Formula 5000 Grand Prix. The big Avons will be getting a workout in the hot conditions. And Tony Richards' car is definitely moving around the racetrack. Sefton Gibb lying in wait to pounce. And David Abbott not too far behind in the MSC New Zealand Express Lola T430. Sefton Gibb just shifting down the gears through the sweeper. He is definitely applying pressure to Tony Richards. 260, 270 kilometres an hour. Down into one, Richards gets out of shape. The back of the car just skipped out on him under brakes into one. Sefton Gibb right in behind. Richards 5th, Sefton Gibb 6th, David Abbott 7th. Tony Richards' car was manufactured in 1974. The halcyon years of Formula 5000s. Roger Williams, he's actually lapping quicker than Chris Hyde at the moment. 19.3 for Roger Williams, 19.5 for Chris Hyde. As this battle continues for 5th, 6th and 7th between Richards, Sefton Gibb and David Abbott. Chris Hyde in the beautiful McRae GM1 was clocked at 281 kilometres an hour down the main straight during race number 2. Car 51, Peter Burson just going through shot. He's about to be lapped by the race leader. First 2 races of the weekend have been 6 laps. The MSC Formula 5000 Grand Prix, a 12-lap race distance. Chris Hyde works his way off the infield as this battle continues. Richards and Sefton Gibb. And there's Peter Burson, another one of the McRae GM1s. Oh, that's the race leader just dropping a wheel off the track, trying to negotiate lap traffic. Switches to the inside up the short straight. Just gives him a brief glimpse out the right side of the cockpit does Chris Hyde. Gets out of the sweeper and continues on in the race lead. Goes by the number 8 of Kerry Anderson. And Roger Williams is not far away here. We go back on board with Gibb down the inside. Through the left-hander, he's going to pick off Richards. Through to 5th goes Sefton Gibb. He's had a quick look in his mirror to see maybe if Richards is coming back at him, but I think Richards was just struggling a little bit on rear tyres. His 332 had been moving around the track for a good couple of laps. Again, another glimpse in the mirror from Gibb. Sefton Gibb works his way out of turn number 1. David Abbott's also got by the number 23. So Sefton Gibb moves through to 5th. David Abbott 6th. Tony Richards 7th, Aaron Burson 8th in the Talon MR1A. There is Aaron Burson coming into shop. Looks like he's struggling with a little bit of understeer out of the hairpin. Absolutely beautiful race car. Aaron out there doing the job along with his father Peter Burson. Peter in the number 51 McRae. And enjoying himself out there in the Talon. Currently lapping in the 1:25 range. Back on board with Sefton Gibb. And he's closing in on Stan Redman here. Stan Redmond just dropping back into the clutches of Sefton Gibb. He may also be struggling on worn rear tyres. Sefton Gibb out of potholes, stalking Stan Redmond for the 4th position. Down the inside, under brakes into the hairpin. See if he can get it around. Gets wheel spin off the exit, has to correct. He holds on to it, no sign of Stan Redmond. So Sefton Gibb moves through to 4th, Redmond 5th, David Abbott 6th, Tony Richards 7th, Chris Hyde continues to lead from Roger Williams. 9th is Lindsay O'Donnell, just coming into the hairpin ahead of Tony Roberts. There's Russell Greer and the number 14, 332, and that beautiful Yardley McLaren, driven by Christchurch's Phil Major, a car with a lot of history. The only Formula One car in the field, but who could deny a chance to run with these cars in front of the fans in Christchurch? This car was purchased by Denny Hulme off the McLaren factory upon his retirement from Formula One in the 1970s. You can certainly hear this car coming, powered by the awesome DFV Cosworth, another famous car, the ex-Graham Lawrence Lola T332. And just in behind this group, Tony Roberts. Certainly having an awful lot of fun out there. He's owned a couple of McLarens. One of the men behind a lot of the restorations here in New Zealand, including the ex-M8 Denny Hulme M8. That was one of the cars just going off ahead of him. I think it was the 8 of Kerry Anderson. And another car off, it's the Beg. Car number 19, Noel Attlee. Runs off track. And that is the end of the race for Attlee and the Beg 018. Tony Roberts just stepping out sideways out of pothole. Lindsay O'Donnell still 9th, 10th Roberts, 11th Greer, 12th Major, and they're about to be lapped, swallowed up by the race leader Chris Hyde, and he's extended that lead now. He's got away from Roger Williams in the last few laps. Just pointing to the flag marshals, waiting for some blue flags. Phil Major and the Yardley moves over and lets the race leader through. As the McRae thunders out of the carousel. Out of the right-hander, switches back to the left onto the old back straight. Up towards the sweeper. Slips down the inside of Russell Greer. Chris Hyde works his way down onto the straight. More lap traffic up ahead. Tony Roberts and Lindsay O'Donnell. The start of the last lap of the MSC Formula 5000 Grand Prix. Second round of the MSC Tasman Revival Series. Some amazing racing, certainly some amazing cars as O'Donnell slips by Tony Roberts. I think he was mindful not to get in the way of the race leader. Hyde slips past and he goes down the inside of O'Donnell, under brakes and to the hairpin. A McRae, a Beg and a McLaren all sharing the same piece of motor racing circuit. Fantastic sight. And not far behind them is a McLaren, a Formula One McLaren and a Lola. And back to the second place car, the Lola T332 of Roger Williams. He's just faded in the last few laps. He's let Chris Hyde get away. The 12 laps in one of these cars around Ruapuna is a lot of hard work. Chris Hyde's going to score the clean sweep. 2 rounds of the MSC Tasman Revival Series. He's not been beaten. 6 out of 6 coming up for the Christchurch driver. And the Hyde name, of course, a familiar name around the South Island, is Dad Avon. Watching on the pit wall as Chris Hyde wins the MSC Formula 5000 Grand Prix at Ruapuna. Then it'll be the second place car, Roger Williams, car number 63. And Kenny Smith Amazingly, in his 50th year of motor racing, third across the line, Chris Hyde celebrates his win. Absolutely superb weekend. What a display put on by the Tasman Revival Series at Ruapuna. Flag marshals just showing their flag, waving their flags in appreciation. Chris Hyde 6 out of 6, Roger Williams second there. And there's Kenny Smith closing up in third, just waving to the fans and the flag marshals. The end of an amazing weekend. So 6 out of 6, the clean sweep over the series for Chris Hyde, heading to the next round of Pukekohe. Roger Williams second, Kenny Smith third, followed by Sefton Gibb, Stan Redman and David Abbott. The festivities continued after the race with the presentation of this beautiful cup to race winner Chris Hyde. Chris, it looked like pretty hot work out there, 12 laps in one of these things. I mean, Kenny got out of the car and he wasn't even puffing, and you and Rog look like you'd done a little bit of work.
Yeah, we're twice the weight. I mean, geez. But I don't know how they did in the early days doing the big long track stuff, but that was exhausting, and we just had to pace ourselves all the way through. The best thing of the whole race was seeing the last lap flag, to be honest, but just incredible. I'm so happy, and 6 out of 6 so far in the lap record, so I'm very happy.
Chris Hyde heads to Pukekohe for the next round of the MSC Tasman Revival Series on the 26th and 27th of January with the points lead over Formula 5000 legend Kenny Smith.